Bang, bang. Austin's here. You're the second newsletter king to walk in the door this week. What's up, man?
Not too much. How's it going?
Good. I'm doing great. You're doing better than me. You're fucking killing the game over there. Morning Brew. Let's start with, what did you do before you became the expert on newsletters?
Yeah, so I actually didn't do too much. This was my first real gig.
All right. How old are you?
25.
Jesus Christ. All right. You're way more responsible than I was at 25. Go ahead. You probably hear that a lot.
Yeah. So I was a sophomore in college in the University of Michigan, and a guy by the name of Alex Lieberman, who's my co-founder now, was writing this, like, to even call it a newsletter is generous to email newsletters, at least what they are now. It was this crappy PDF attachment. But the way he came up with the idea was he was helping friends with interview prep. And what he realized was that people really struggled to resonate with the business world. Mm-hmm. So they were reading the journal to prep for interviews, but they felt like they had to. They didn't feel like they wanted to read some of these sources. And it's not to discredit these sources. They're all great sources, and we actually, partner with them or use them all now. But we felt like there had to be a different take or different spin on traditional business news. And so Alex started writing that. And at the time, there was actually no way to sign up. So you had to email Alex, say, hey, I looked over someone else's shoulders and I saw what they were reading. Can you sign me up? So after about 300 people did that, the list got to 300, which is insanely impressive how he did that. He sent an email to the whole list saying, hey, who wants to join? And so I was all in. We came together. We put it on hold for a couple weeks, and we launched Morning Brew March 15th, 2015.
Why did you come up with that name?
So it's funny. One of Alex's, so we were in the same fraternity, both in AEPi. One of our friends came up with it. Is that a
cool one or not a cool one?
It's pretty cool. It's not bad. It's like middle of the pack.
Middle of the pack? All right. Middle of the pack's fine.
Yeah, it works.
I feel like you don't want to be too fratty, so like that's good. All right. and what did your friend, why did they come up with this, or it was just...
Yeah, so we knew we were going to send it in the morning. Mm-hmm. Obviously, morning. That's where that came from.
Your friend's a genius. Okay.
Yeah. So we're hitting a home run there. And then we knew that we wanted something that represented waking up, starting your day. And so coffee starts your day. The newsletter starts your day.
Morning coffee sounds lame.
Yeah, exactly. And the funny thing is, I feel like it's like every name where you hear it and you're like, oh, that's terrible. I hate that name. And then you're like, oh, that's growing on me. And you text 10 friends. And like 4 are like, oh, that's great. 6 are like, it's not that great. And then 4 of those 6 come around. And we couldn't think of anything better. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I couldn't think of anything better is a very common way that names get adopted.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of times you just pick a running name as you have a big brainstorm. You can't come up with anything good. You say, all right, this is the worst or the best of all the bad terms.
We'll use this as the placeholder until we come up with something better. And then you never
And then it's launch day and you're like, shit, we never thought of anything. So let's just launch with it.
I love it. All right. So you guys went from 300 subscribers to now you're closing in on like $1.5 million, $2 million?
Yeah, closing in on 2.
Okay. And how the hell do you go from 300 subscribers to almost 2 million in 4 years, 5 years?
Yeah. So I joined. And Alex,
that's the answer. Yeah. Just I joined.
No, definitely not. It was a team effort. So I joined, and Alex and I are the first brand ambassadors at Michigan. So we're going to every Econ 101 class, Accounting 101, and just begging professors, can we have 3 minutes of your time? We'd walk into an Econ 101 lecture, 500 people. We'd pitch them on Morning Brew, and then we'd pass out a piece of paper with 500 lines. And every person would write their email down. I don't even think half the people knew what they were signing up for because they were on ESPN or they were on Twitter, not paying attention. And immediately after that class, we go to the landing page and we type in 500 email addresses.
I love it.
And we just go and go. And we got a few, maybe 5,000 or 6,000 in Michigan. And we're like, we read some entrepreneurship books, listened to a few podcasts, do things that don't scale. Let's get our friends to do this to other schools. So we got our friends to do it. And so they all did. And they did a pretty good job. And that got us to 20, 25,000 maybe. And then we had readers who also wanted to do that. So then we scaled the ambassador program to readers. And we had this one ambassador at Notre Dame, one of our first ones, who got almost 2,000 referrals.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was a group effort.
Who was that person?
She was a business student. She did the same thing. She had a good relationship with not even that many, 3 or 4 professors. Mm-hmm. And she just asked
big
them,
class size.
Yeah, huge classes. Notre Dame, big business school like Michigan. And if you can get to an Econ 101 class, there's 500 kids there. And so it just scaled from that. And so that was the college days. At the very beginning, we thought this was a product for college students. So we thought, okay, here's a problem. People in college struggle to resonate with the business world, and their knowledge base in the business world is completely different than someone who's even a year or two out. So therefore, let's create a product for college students. Quickly, what we learned after we graduate or even before is that that's not the case. And so we said, people outside of college also need this. So let's create this for what we now call the modern business leader. So college students are part of the target demographic, but it's not solely the demographic.
What do you think the breakdown is today? I mean, you guys obviously have so many subscribers. I'm assuming majority are not in college, right?
Correct.
And then the college students are kind of coming into this. This is their first iteration of how they can learn about business in their voice.
Yeah, so we call the college student the aspirational reader.
Okay.
So some pick it up in freshman or sophomore year through older students, but I guess most of them go off to an internship, see their analyst, their associate reading it, or what we've heard a lot now is when these big banks or consulting firms come for career days, they'll do a presentation and they'll say, if you want to stay updated in the business world, read these sources, and Morning Brew will be on that list, which is very cool and a bit funny because that's why we started Morning Brew, is because there was nothing like that on the list. So to see it on the list now is pretty wild. To see Wall Street Journal, Economist, New York Times, Morning Brew, it's a pretty wild feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So as you guys begin to realize, hey, this is actually like a real business, you and your co-founder both had done stints on Wall Street kind of financial service firms. Most people would kill for those jobs. Like, what are you two psychos doing, not doing that and going to do newsletters?
Yeah, so I think that's what my parents thought. Like, what is this newsletter thing? And Alex's family was the same way. But
you're going to work on email?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what is this? No, my parents were very supportive, as were Alex's family. I mean, they were definitely a bit weary and like a bit concerned, but they trusted us, and that was excellent. That was great. But basically, after my junior year, I interned at an investment bank called Moelis, and Alex was 2 years.
Super legit place.
Yeah, it's a fairly good bank. It's a boutique bank. You work 100 hours a week, but a lot of people think it's worth it, and who knows. And Alex traded mortgages at Morgan Stanley. And probably 8 or 9 weeks into my summer, we said, we want to be entrepreneurs. We want to start our own business at some point. Why not now? We have very few obligations. We had, no kids, no family, no house, no mortgage, obviously. So let's do it now. And we had a product. And it's funny, in hindsight, it probably wasn't nearly as far along as we thought. Like, oh, we have 30,000 subscribers. This is sick.
That's still pretty good, though.
Yeah, it was good until we went to advertisers. Like, hey, we'll pay you $100 for 30,000 subscribers. And we're like, oh, we have to really scale this thing. So that's when we decided to raise a bit of money. So 2017, when I graduated, we raised an angel round. So we raised $750,000 convertible note. And that's all we've raised to date.
So when you went to raise that money, walk me through the thought process of why you wanted to raise money versus not. And then how did you think about pricing the round and convertible debt versus equity? Like, did you guys have an opinion on all this? Or was it like, dude, we got no fucking clue what we're doing. Like, let's go ask somebody for advice. Like how did you navigate that, especially since you guys were so young and this was kind of the first thing you guys were going to do out of school?
Yeah, so to take a step back, in 2015, when we first started Morning Brew, and we thought of the idea, we said, if we ever go out and raise money and do this, we're gonna raise a ton of money. At the time, if you remember, that was when Facebook was just giving everyone all this traffic, and so people were raising $100 million rounds, multiple hundred million. Like there are media companies literally raising hundreds of millions of dollars, and so we said, oh, we'll follow suit. The luckiest thing that happened to us, and one of the reasons we are where we are today, is because we had 2 years from 2015 to 2017 to see what happened. And what we saw is that capital was not going to return in the way that these investors or founders thought it was going to. And so in 2017, when we raised, we took a way more conservative approach. Instead of going out and raising a $3 million seed round, we said, let's raise as little as possible that will allow us to run the business. We knew that while we were decent writers, we could envision the tone and the style we want to write in, but we couldn't accomplish that and run the business.
Yep.
So we knew we had to hire a writer. which we knew was going to cost money. We weren't generating revenue. So we knew to raise something. And we just talked to people, and convertible notes were hot, and we didn't know what to price the round at. So we picked a convertible note. There were some thoughts, 750, $1 million, who knows? We got 750 and we stopped. And so that was it. And we haven't raised since. And we're very glad we made that decision. It allows us to be in the driver's seat every day. We're a profitable media company, and we don't have to double every year because that's what our previous investors want us to do. We get to grow at the pace we want to grow at, what we think is the most responsible. We're profitable. I think we're growing, very quickly, but we don't have to be irresponsible. And we can embrace and consider other decisions that certain companies can. So if you have raised a ton of money, opportunities may come about that may seem small at first, and you have to turn those away because you can only take big bets. If you have to sell for $250 million or $500 million. For us, we get to evaluate every opportunity and do certain things that aren't scalable or maybe aren't worth $1 billion, but that we want to do.
It's funny because I tell every entrepreneur, no matter how much money you raise, you're going to spend it in 18 months. Right. So like if you raise 750, you're going to try to spend it in 18 months. Yeah. If you raise $250 million, you're going to spend it in 18 months.
Yeah.
And people always like, no way. And I'm like, let me show you a bunch of examples.
Yeah.
And so what'd you say? They raised hundreds of millions of dollars, and 2 years later, you already knew the outcomes.
Yeah.
Right. Like, because they spent all the money in about 18 months.
And it makes sense, right? Investors don't want to invest in the company and have that money sit on a balance sheet.
Yeah. They can hold it in their own funds.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that capital has to be spent. For the most part, right? Obviously, there's exceptions, but for the most part, an investor doesn't want to invest $100 million for that to sit in their bank account, because why are they doing that? And so it makes sense that they get spent, but that just increases growth projections, increases expectations, and it limits the range of outcomes. So when you raise large rounds of funding, or like at media companies, I have this belief that, not universally, but for the most part, it's very challenging for media companies in a short period of time to see venture-backed returns. And I think media companies are way better off growing slowly. It's all about the brand. So if you grow slow at first, then you can take capital later on. And there's a lot of media companies who have been doing that recently and seeing great success. So Barstool, take like whatever you want with their content from a business perspective. They built that brand for,
13 years.
For such a long time before they raised their round.
Yeah.
And so they built that brand. Who knows? But my guess is that if they would have raised that same amount of capital as a seed round, they would not have been able to slowly build that brand, which I think that's what it took. And obviously, they had a very successful outcome.
Well, Dave was literally handing out physical free papers in Boston. Like, there's zero chance that if you would get him $7 million in 2003, that he'd still have that money by like 2005.
Yeah.
Half of it, who knows where he would have put it. And the other half, he would have wasted printing papers.
Yeah.
Right?
And there's a lot of other examples as well. I mean, the infatuation, while they've certainly raised capital, they've been around for a very long time. And it's funny, I barely even knew who they were until a year ago. And now it feels like they're everywhere. And I think they recently raised a huge round, and they did raise capital before, but they weren't raising multiple double-digit million rounds of funding, which they probably could have, but they slowly grew it. And I think they're doing a great job. And now they have all these great business lines. I have no idea how they're doing, but it seems like things are going well. They have an awesome events business. They have a subscription business. They have an ads business. So it appears from the outside like it's a great company. Food 52 is another one, a slow growth company. Again, they didn't bootstrap the whole thing, but they took a very different approach than some other companies.
And it feels like, too, these media companies, as they start to kind of hit their stride, really what they're doing is they're building brand allegiance and kind of a rabid fan base, right? And when you have that, you can monetize it through a million different ways. And that literally takes time, right? People have to figure out who you are. They've got to you earn their trust on a day-to-day basis, day in, day out, for months or years at a time. And then you can kind of hit that inflection point. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about with this slow growth.
Exactly. Yeah. Not everyone, but for the most part, again, nothing is universal, but I do believe it is challenging to build a brand in 3 years. That's not to say you can't have great branding, right? You can have great branding. There was a big conversation on Twitter about this last week. You can have unbelievable branding, but can you actually build true brand affinity with hundreds of thousands or millions of people in a few years? I think it's a huge challenge, and it takes time.
For sure. And as you guys have grown, you now have the main newsletter. You've added a bunch of different pieces to it. Maybe talk us through about like what else have you added, and what is the thought process for kind of adding to kind of that core offering that you have?
Yeah. So end of 2018, we finished 2018, 850,000 subscribers, but end of 2018, we were pretty close to there, obviously. And we took a step back and we said, what do we want to do next? We're not going to lose focus from the core newsletter, but we want to do other things. And we looked at what every other media company was doing, and we decided, we want to do our own thing. And so everyone was still in video, this, that, and we decided we wanted to focus on more newsletters. We thought that our tone, style, format, email, monetization, everything we do in email was unique. And we thought we could take that to areas in which people are either interested in or they work in to better their lives, their career, or their interest. And so we decided to launch Emerging Tech Brew, I believe February or March 2019. Covers AI, machine learning, blockchain, emerging technologies. That's sent out 3 days a week. We then, midsummer 2019, launched Retail Brew, covers the retail industry. So any emerging news, or really anything that happens in the retail industry, we're giving you a newsletter 3 times a week. And then I think August or so, we launched Business Casual, which is our first podcast, hosted by Kinsey Grant. And we're really excited about that. And then recently we launched The Turnout, which is our politics newsletter. So once a week, but we do politics differently. So it's not pure politics, it's business meets politics. So it's the implications of what's happening in the political world and the election, how that affects the business world. Going forward, we're continuing to launch new newsletters. We see a lot of white space in the newsletter space. And so I believe we'll launch at least one more this year, if not two. Continue to go down the path of you wake up in the morning, you read Morning Brew, you're educated in the general business world, but then you're a retail professional. And so at 10 a.m., there's a newsletter at your desk. You're reading at work that's educating you on the retail industry. And then, hopefully at lunch, you listen to Business Casual. And if we can progress our media properties throughout your day, we can fill your day with our tone, our style, and we can provide a great experience both to readers, but then also a full funnel approach to advertisers.
And so as you're thinking through this, how do you pick like the next vertical to go into, and paid versus free newsletters, kind of like as you're like actually building the product itself? Like, what's the thought process that goes into this?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's something we think a lot about. So let's first tackle.
All I do is good questions on this podcast, Austin.
True.
What the hell?
Let's tackle the first thing. So how do we pick the topic? It's a simple matrix. It's a combination of, number one, is there enough content to write about? So if it's a once a week, if the ultimate outcome is a once a week newsletter, right now, not that interesting for us. Just not enough to get us excited. So there has to be enough content. 2, are there enough people in that industry such that we believe we can grow a vertical, not to 2 million, but we want something in the hundreds of thousands for sure. And then the advertiser pool. How many companies want to get in front of these people? And so we just line up a bunch of topics, and then we define a good writer. It's really, really challenging to be a Morning Brew writer. You have to be knowledgeable about the area in which you're working in. You have to be able to write multiple newsletters a week, and you have to be able to write in our tone. And we've interviewed so many people who are excellent journalists and excellent writers who work at other publications, but they just can't write in our witty tone and our style. And so it's a Venn diagram of a bunch of different things, and it's challenging to find that writer. And so it's a combination of those things. So that's how we decide what vertical to go into. Now, free versus paid is a much bigger conversation. We do plan on launching paid products, but I don't believe, for the most part, people pay for news or have a high willingness to pay for news. Sure, if it's very niche, that's one thing. Obviously, your newsletter, very niche, and you're an expert at it, so that makes sense. If
I just play an expert on Twitter.
Yeah. So all you have to do is look like an expert. You don't actually have to be an expert.
It's the black T-shirt. Go ahead.
Exactly. It's funny. Normally, I'm the one wearing black T-shirts, so I'm glad we mixed it up.
Polina's sitting in the room, and she knows, and most people know this now. She gets mad because all I own is black T-shirts because it's much easier just to wake up and put a black T-shirt on. Yeah. But she also is like, "Hey, we're going to this event. Can you like maybe put something else on?" I'm like, "Well, I would if I had something else. You want me to wear this athletic shirt?" She's like, "Nah, stick with the black T-shirt."
Yeah. So that's me 80% of days.
Perfect.
Back to free versus paid. So, again, Wall Street Journal, paper of record, there are exceptions, but we don't have a desire to ever charge for our core newsletter or for news for that matter. I do think when we think about paid, we have this community of 2 million plus modern business leaders, as we call them. So aspirational people out there who are intellectually curious, who want to get better and better themselves. And so how can we bring these people together? How can we educate them in other ways? And that will come with time. But for right now, we see so much opportunity and so much white space in the free ad-based media world that we're playing in.
Yeah. And so when you look across kind of media models today, does a media company need to have these various revenue sources in order to actually not only survive, but actually thrive? We see a lot of the large media companies, they've pushed hard into things like live events or subscription paywalls, all these other things outside of just their core advertising. Is that hey, we need to do this, so we do it? Or do you think that's more of just them being super ambitious and innovative?
I think it depends on what scale you want to get to. So at our scale, we're 100% ad-based. I think that's fine. If we want to get to $100 million of revenue, 100 million plus, I definitely think we'll need to diversify revenue.
Is that the goal?
At some point, yeah. I definitely think, our goal, while we don't have venture money, that doesn't mean we're not looking for venture outcomes. And so we certainly want to get to 100 million plus in revenue. And so we will diversify revenue. I think it depends. If you are a majority ad-based company, I do think tacking on other things is good because ads can be lumpy. It can be challenging to continue to source ads.
Explain that a little bit more, right? So selling ads, I think, is people are just like, oh, I see this ad in this newsletter. Cool, whatever. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. But I don't think they really understand like what goes into the process of selling the ads. Like, how did you guys start selling ads? And then like, what does that process look like for you guys today?
Yeah, so ads and newsletters are different for everyone. There are some newsletters out there who just put live intent or programmatic ads. We do zero programmatic. So everything we source or they're inbound, but we have account managers who manage the account. We have brand partners who are selling. We have integrated marketing who's coming with full funnel campaigns. And so we are working with partners to understand their goals, to understand their talking points, but we make sure that every ad unit in our newsletter is native in our tone, in our voice, integrated in the newsletter. So we believe editorially, we do a great job and resonate with our readers with our tone, our style, our format. And so your ad is going to be in the same exact way. And so our content resonates just like your ad will resonate. But yeah, I mean, some of these ad partners are big deals, right? 6-7 figure deals. With that can come lumpiness or variability to the business. And right now everything's going well, but certainly for us, we definitely think about how can we diversify. Like I said before, we're really confident in it, but if you're an ad-based business, but you have programmatic ads, I am not the most knowledgeable person on the programmatic ad industry, but obviously there's lots going on with third-party cookies and everything, and I think those businesses are going to look to how can I diversify through putting up a paywall, events, and some of those things, by the way, they're not just small ancillary ad businesses. They could be bigger than the ad business. There are media companies out there that put on multi-million-dollar events every year, so it can be a great revenue stream.
When you're selling the ads, how do you guys think about the relationship with the advertiser? Do you look for everyone from, hey, I'll do one advertisement one time to kind of, I'm assuming like an annual contract type relationship? Or do you try to focus on a certain type of advertiser? And really what I'm interested in is you guys have taken a very kind of long-term view of building the relationship with the reader or the modern business leader. Do you do the same thing on the advertising side, or is it just the advertiser kind of dictates what the terms that they want and you guys are just trying to fulfill their needs? Like, how do you think about that?
Yeah, we like to treat our advertisers as well as we treat our readers. And so obviously as a media company, that's always a balance. It's always a challenging balance. We say no and turn down. We actually just did this. We turned down an advertising partner because we felt they weren't a good partner for the brand. But
is this because they're like a vice type thing, like they're drug related, alcohol related, something like that, or more so they weren't a good fit in terms of they didn't want to their goals in the campaign were different than the goals you want for your advertisers?
The former. So
okay,
it didn't fit from a brand perspective. Yep. We thought it wasn't a good thing to promote in our newsletter, and so we didn't want to promote it. from a moral standpoint, but also we don't want to upset our readers.
Yep.
We don't want people leaving because we're advertising things that may be illegal in the future or were just recently legalized. Who knows?
Yep.
And so we have to be very careful with that. So that is what we choose. But ad deals are bespoke, given it's not programmatic.
Mm-hmm.
But we do like to work on longer deals with partners who have longer time horizons, so we can create really compelling, great campaigns. And as the ad team has grown, which it has recently, we actually call it the brand partnership team, because we do believe we're building partnerships. We're not just selling ads. We are planning out much longer term campaigns, integrating everything from content in the newsletter to audio, so podcast ads, to more experiential things. So we're going to be testing that as well. And we want ad partners who are willing to be experimental with us and go along for that ride. And what we found is there are a lot of people who like the way our brand resonates with our readers and who are willing to do that.
That's awesome. What are the mistakes you guys have made in building the business, right? You guys, as first-time entrepreneurs, you've had to raise capital, hire people, manage people, build multiple products, kind of all these different things. People would be crazy to think that you've never made a mistake. Like, is there anything that sticks out where you're like, man, we made this mistake and then here's how we corrected it?
Yeah, we've made every mistake you could possibly make twice over.
Now I know you're telling the truth because, by the way, every single person, including myself, should say the same thing.
No, we've made every mistake. The most impactful mistakes always come down to people. So it's always you bring the wrong person on for the wrong position. I've never regretted spending too long to hire someone. So the only hires we've regret are ones that we made too quickly. So it's never been bad to say, oh, let's interview one more candidate or let's have one more interview with them. Mm-hmm. And you always want to balance, we're going to move quickly. We want to make sure that this happens this month because that was the KPI we set to hire this person.
They're going to take another job.
Exactly. Yeah. But I rather that than bringing on a bad person. I think people don't understand how detrimental it is to bring on someone who is not a good fit to the team. And the higher up they are, the more detrimental it is. And so it's a challenge to bring on the best people. We've been fortunate that we have an incredible team, but it all comes down to people and bringing the wrong people on, putting them in the wrong position, giving them too much work to do, not focusing them. That's the other big one. For me, everything comes back to focus, right? Everything is focus. And so, ideas are 1%, execution's 99%, or whatever the cliche phrase is. And how do you execute is you just focus and you pick, it's better to be good at a few things than average at a bunch of things. And so those are the two big ones. It's focus and people.
How do you spend your day, right? So talking about focus here, like you and your co-founder both are still a relatively small company, right? 35 employees, give or take.
Right around there, a few more.
And that means that you probably have multiple hats versus if you had 200 people. Yep. Like, how do you actually spend your day on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so it depends, as it always does. But Alex is more of the creative. So he's way more integrated in the content team, helping with the podcast, helping with, oversee content, what's next, with the brand team, social media. So he's doing a lot of that. I'm overseeing the growth team and product and tech and sales. Now, obviously we have people running those, but I'm making sure all of those integrate on a day-to-day basis and overseeing more of the day-to-day. But for me personally, what I try to do is put myself in high leverage positions. So things that for whatever reason, normally it's not even because of my skill set. Normally it's because of my position at the company. Someone else would be worse at that job because they don't have executive power to make a decision fast enough, or they can't get in touch with the right people, whatever it may be. I try to put myself in positions that other people wouldn't be able to thrive in that position. If I think someone's better than me at something, I'm the first person to bring them on to replace me. I mean, that's like part of our jobs as co-founders, is to scale the team such that we are mission critical in fewer and fewer decisions. So make fewer and fewer decisions on a day-to-day basis, but feel as if we've scaled ourselves such that we, while not literally, are in each room making each decision because we've hired the right people and trained them.
Absolutely. Who do you look out and admire in the media world?
That's a good question. I like the infatuation a lot.
Okay. You keep bringing them up. What's so interesting about them?
it's the interesting thing about brand, at least for me, is that it's hard to articulate when a company has a brand people resonate with, but it's very easy to feel.
Okay. So you know it when you see it type of thing.
Like no one says, hey, at least my friends don't go, hey, I love Yelp or I love, Google review. I can't even tell you other review sites because I am 100% all in on when I need help find your restaurant. It's the infatuation, just 100%. And so I think they're a great one. I think with Roy and Jim and Mike is on an Axios is another really great one.
What do you like about them?
I think that their ability to find great talent, have that talent run each newsletter and verticalize the business that way and scale it is pretty admirable. They have taken on funding, which has helped them do it in a quicker way than we would have been able to. But it's a somewhat similar model. Everyone compares us because we're both newsletter companies. Very different target demographic, and I think very different angles.
Are you saying that Axios is going after boomers?
I would say that Axios' target is boomers. I'm not sure that's what they'd say. I think they would say
now I'm going to tweet at Mike and be like, hey, man, I heard you guys are for boomers.
I think
I'm giving everyone a hard time. We do not actually need that.
I think they would say executives. Is what they would say.
But they're definitely, I think that, again, from the brand perspective, everything from logos, the voice, etc., there is a very distinct difference between, while there is some overlap, there's a very distinct difference in who you're going after, which kind of allows people to self-select, right? Hey, if you fit one group versus another, you're more likely to actually gravitate towards the content.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And another one I like, because I'm picking some of these, smaller, at least current.
I can't wait to tweet that. Axios is going after boomers. Go ahead.
Please don't quote me on that. I like what BuzzFeed's done. So obviously BuzzFeed was lumped in with some of these other larger internet first, even Facebook first publishers perhaps. But Jonah Peretti just wrote this really great blog post about how they're diversifying revenue and they're licensing a bunch of content. And I think it's really interesting what they're doing. So I'm not, I have a soft spot in my heart for some of these smaller publishers. But I think a bunch of people are out there doing a good job. I mean, it's tough, obviously. The media industry has been through a lot recently. And I have a lot of respect for also the small, like for the ones that are doing it independent. Like what Rafat's doing at Skift is another one. There's a lot of people out there I like.
Explain to me what exactly he's doing there.
Yeah, so they've built a B2B travel company. So they are trying to create content. They have subscription. They have events. I think events are a big part of their business and target everyone in the travel industry.
Got it. So it's a publication and events business that's focused on a very specific verticalized business or industry.
Yeah, and I think while potentially the ceiling is lower, I'm very bullish on B2B publications. So you pick a target. For him, it's the travel industry. Maybe it's retail. Digiday does media, and they also have modern retails. They've done a few. There are a bunch of these out there, and they just cover it to death. They keep on covering it. And then they serve very targeted ads at those people for very high CPMs because it's the right people. It's all B2B. So people are putting their subscriptions, their company cards, and then they have events that people's companies are paying for. So it's very high dollar amount. And so, I mean, consumer media is tough. I really do like the B2B space. I think it's going to be tough to see those $1 billion exits in the B2B space. But from an expected value standpoint, I think those are great companies. And those are companies where you can go out and do what we did, raise $1 million, raise one round and go build a profitable media company. And then at that point, once you've raised a profitable company, then you've all the leverage. If someone wants to come in and then fund the company at a later date, then sure, go ahead. You're still in control. You're still profitable and you can pick the right investors for your goals.
Yeah, super interesting. When you think about kind of the modern media company, obviously with Morning Brew, Axios, etc., there's this weird balance between the brand, the company, and then the individual writers themselves and people wanting to subscribe to them, right? Polina's here in the room, so we'll pick on her, but she obviously works at Fortune, writes term sheet, and so some people are going to subscribe for the Fortune brand and the term sheet brand, and then some people are going to subscribe because they want to hear from Polina. You guys obviously have very similar things. How do you think about that balance and like how much to promote the business and brand versus like the individual writers, also understanding that, hey, if we just say like, Austin's newsletter and then Austin leaves, well, like we're screwed.
Yeah.
Right. So like, where's that balance come in?
Yeah. So I'm not going to be able to give you a great answer. This is something we think about all the time. It's a challenge because you look at the person who wrote Paulina's newsletter before. He left. Yeah. Or maybe a few before. He left. And so, yeah, it's tough.
Paulina's better.
Yeah, I agree. But
I'll tweet that at him.
Yeah,
too.
But please don't tweet that either. I shouldn't have said that.
No, I said that. You didn't say that.
But so I think it depends, right? And you have to make sure it aligns with what you're doing. So going back to a company like Barstool, they're all personality. They've gone all in, and that's what they do. And so that makes a lot of sense. You look at Morning Brew, right? We're trying to build a brand as a company. So I don't think it would make sense to launch, to have one name behind Morning Brew for that reason. Mm-hmm. With that being said, could we create sub-brands such, as we have Business Casual, where Kinsey Grant is a face of that? Sure. But I do think you have to be careful in how you do that and make sure they are sub-brands. Even Term Sheet, sure, is written by one person. If that person leaves, people will leave with them, but it's Fortune Term Sheet. It's not, whoever is the current writer of Term Sheet's Term Sheet. Caveating all of that is, I believe people resonate more with people than brands.
Yeah.
And so I think someone's going to crack this code, and potentially it is someone like a Substack who has said, we're going to be the faceless publisher. And we're going to go out there and we're going to create an infrastructure for these personalities to build their own newsletters. I think it's interesting. It's an interesting model. There's obviously lots of difficulties there. It's tough. But again, it's a challenge because people do resonate with people more than brands. And I think that will only continue in the future with social first, with Instagram, with Twitter, Substack, et cetera.
So like Barstool's a great example. Barstool essentially has created the WWF, right? Like that's really what they've recreated in a very, very thoughtful way. And I think a lot of people look at it and they're like, that's mass chaos going on over there. It's not at all.
It's not chaos at all.
Yeah, they're super on top of what they're doing, and have been very strategic, and it's worked very well. But do you think that they can pull off the personality first type content because of the type of content that they're creating, meaning that it's more comedy based, it's more entertainment than it is like actual news, right? Meaning if you listen to some of their podcasts, whatever, they're actually, you're not going there to read like the Astros beat the Yankees. Well, actually, no, fuck the Astros. The Yankees beat the Astros because the Astros are cheaters. But you're not going there for the score of the game, right? Instead, what you're doing is you're going to hear the personal opinions of these individuals, right? Like the content or brand promise is different than say ESPN, which I just want to go and hear, what was the score, what are the stats, etc. Could the ESPNs of the world transition? Well, or is that just too hard for them to do at this point?
So I think what we're seeing is people don't really care about as much about this, at least from an engagement standpoint, don't care as much about the scores, don't care as much about even the longer highlights, right? I follow House of Highlights. I just want the best.
Amazing. Omar
incredible.
Crushed it.
Well, yeah, he crushed it. Yeah. And it's interesting that he left, and we'll see how that plays out. But even so, he went to ESPN, right?
Did he?
Is it?
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I believe, and I could be wrong. I believe he went to SportsCenter, and I think if you go to SportsCenter's Twitter, it says this is Omar.
Wow.
So he left.
That's like the free agency of the year right there. I didn't know that happened.
Yeah, it was big, and so they're going more personality driven.
Find out, Joe. We got to find out how much they paid that dude. They ESPN and SportsCenter were like, our business sucks. House of Highlights is crushing us. Pay that kid whatever he wants.
Yeah, and so we'll see. I do think
I'm a DM Omar on Instagram, but yeah, dude, how much they pay you?
I'm sure it's a lot.
How much do you think? How much do you think if you're ESPN? How much would they pay you?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Over under $2 million a year.
I'd say under, but not too much.
I'm going
under.
over.
Wow.
You know why?
Yeah.
If you're ESPN and you lose on social in today's day and age, you accelerate your demise. And $2 million or more is nothing to ESPN to stay the leader in sports.
Yeah, $2 million is a lot of money. Yeah,
to a kid posting memes and videos on the internet, but he's probably the best in the sports.
Yeah, he's good. He's good. And it'll be interesting to see how House of Highlights continues. I'm sure they'll be fine. But anyway, back to your question. I think it's tough, right? It's got to be in the DNA. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure even at Barstool, right? Everyone, I assume anyone who let's not call them Barstool Sports. Let's call them Barstool because it's not sports. It's entertainment, right? And I think that's where people get so angry is people don't realize they're not a news company. It's entertainment. It's fun. It's not chaos. It's manufactured chaos.
So my whole thing was in March of 16, I think is when they took the money from Chernin.
Sounds right.
I wrote a thing on Medium. They were valued at $15 million. And I said, Dave Portnoy and his secret plan to build $1 billion media company. And I was like, look, it's going to be $1 billion company. And literally people were like, you are the biggest fucking idiot in the world. And my whole point was, no, you guys are missing the fact that the future of media has nothing to do with the quality of the content. It has everything to do with the audience. And if people are paying attention and there's eyeballs there and they're that fanatical, they'll be able to do all kinds of stuff. And the thing that I missed in the analysis was I actually thought that they were going to go faster outside of the entertaining sports content. So I was like, oh, you could see Barstool News, you could see this, like all these different things. They tested some of it, but I think what happened is like when they tried it, it didn't really resonate as much as just like, no, just double and triple down on like sports related type content or kind of culture related content. And so what that begs the question of, is it sports and culture, like the Ringer, Barstool, etc.? It's just that type of industry is open to that type of content, or could you build a Barstool like media company for politics, for example? Or is it just doesn't work because there's no way to rebuild that type of DNA and that manufactured chaos, etc., in the politics industry?
Yeah, I think it's got to be done in its own way. I mean, one could argue that Pod Save America or the crooked guys have done that, right? It's just different.
Interesting.
It's not going to be as vulgar or whatever word you
Zillion beers, man. Yeah. Zillion beers will go down as the greatest campaign of all time.
But I think what you said before about your $1 billion analysis of Barstool, I don't think that's just media. I think that's consumer in general.
For sure.
Right. I think there's this huge convergence of content and commerce. And I don't know if you know David Perel, but Dave and I co-wrote this piece 9 months ago. I was actually talking to someone today. I would double down on that.
On which part?
So commerce, these direct consumer brands, they're commodities. Most of these companies are just have commoditized products. A mattress is a mattress, right?
Don't tell Casper.
Sorry. Most of these are commodities, and everyone launched and they said, okay, we're going to use this unique little, we're going to get Facebook ads or whatever it may be,
whatever the shiny thing
or this little
was.
hack. But at the end of the day, it's so easy to spin up one of these. And this is not to discredit any of these companies, right? Some of these have built really great companies, but for the most part, it's very, very, the consumer space is so challenging. And so I do think this idea of media companies and media company can be a very, very broad statement. And you're a media company, right? So
I'm more comedic than a media company.
But you're media. And I think everyone now to some extent is media. You have an Instagram following, you have a Twitter following. And so you walk into the liquor store now, Casamigos, that's Clooney, right? Ryan Reynolds, right? He launched his thing, right? Yeah.
Proper 12 with McGregor.
Fuck Jerry launched Haha. Fat Jewish, who's actually coming on Business Casual, shameless plug, I think next week, launched Babe Rosé.
Sold it.
Yeah, sold it.
Couple $100 million bucks, I think.
I don't know how much it was, but AB InBev, I'm sure it wasn't cheap.
Like, so here's, you ready for this? The Fat Jew, Fuck Jerry, and Dave Portnoy are worth more money individually than almost everyone listening to this podcast. How's your life going?
No, it's true.
Think about that for a second.
It's true. It also shows the perils or how in jeopardy news is, or I think a lot of the media industry is, because again, media is just so broad and people want to connect with people and then buy their. Zillion Beers is a great example. I didn't even follow it that much, but it's Dave and this guy going back and forth, and they sold $1.5 million of swag. That's insane. And
that literally just said Zillion Beers in a bunch of different ways. And the way that he marketed it was he would basically turn on the selfie video camera in his apartment, chug beers, and scream "bye, bye, bye," and then smash the beer can on his head. And they sold $1.5 million in 9 days.
Yeah, you know what's another one I actually really like is Complex, right? Mm-hmm. Because Complex, what they've done is other media companies out there say, hey, we're bullish on podcasts. Mm-hmm. We're going to get into the podcast industry. I don't believe, unless you're Spotify, you can be bullish on podcasts, right?
Why?
Because what Complex has said is we are built bullish on building brands, and these brands, the best way to do it, well, for them is video, right?
Yep.
So they're saying, okay, for us, video is the best way to do it. And they're going to do, Joe LaPuma's thing, or I don't even know the guy's name, but I've watched 10 of these hot ones. And I say video is the best way. We're going to build that brand. And then what do? They sell that hot sauce, right? Barstool was bullish on podcasts, but they weren't bullish on podcasts as a medium per se. They were bullish on podcast ability to build a brand. And so there are all these companies out there. A lot of companies out there are saying, hey, we're bullish on product X, video, podcast, but those get saturated. What's not saturated is a brand. And so leveraging a brand, and to your point before, leveraging as many ways as possible. Complex builds a brand. They monetize it on YouTube. They have other native sponsorship deals in addition to the YouTube sponsorship. They license that content. They sell hot sauce. They make money off each brand in 10 different ways. So it's not just, hey, we're going to launch video. It's no, we're launching a brand, and it's a video first brand.
So Business Insider sold 88% stake for $343 million. I just looked it up to confirm.
Yeah.
Which means that Barstool Sports, when they had their recent sale, is worth more money than Business Insider.
Yeah, it's wild.
Which is wild to think about.
Yeah.
But I can almost guarantee you, if you go and ask somebody under the age of, I don't know, 35, 32, right? Which one they read more? They'll say Barstool. They actually consume more content.
Yeah.
Of Barstool.
And also they resonate with more Barstool personalities. They know more Barstool brands. They've bought more Barstool merch. They've interacted with the brand in more ways. I will also say, I think Barstool, they were doing great, but then the sports, I don't know if you read the blog post that Erica Nardini put out, who's the CEO of Barstool, put out, titled, I have 450 million reasons to be a token CEO or something like that.
People fucking hated on them for bringing in the female CEO, and she completely savaged everybody.
Yeah, she's amazing. And what they've done there is just incredible. But I do think there was a bit of luck there with the sports gambling thing, and that was just such a perfect fit.
But okay, so this is a good example. Is it luck that they got the sports gambling to become legalized and that opened up that path? Or is it more of they would have been successful in any manner because they have that audience, and then when they saw this opportunity, they just kind of navigated that way because they realized that was huge?
Yeah, so when I first started Morning Brew, someone told me a saying, and it was, do everything you can to increase your luck surface area, which is a great saying. And that's what Barstool did. They increased their luck surface area. Now, did they potentially hit a very high end of that luck surface area with the sports gambling thing? Maybe, but yeah, you're 100% right. They put themselves in that position to succeed. I think a lot of other brands are going to do the same thing, where who knows what the next big thing is, but also with marijuana becoming legalized in more and more states, could Barstool have capitalized on that? 100%. I'm sure they could have had plans. They do have plans. Who knows what's next or what opportunities coming about? But the people who are building, if they didn't build a brand and they didn't build personalities, they certainly wouldn't have been able to capitalize. So taking nothing away from them, they built the brand, they built personalities, and it's allowed them to succeed.
Does it change the way, like as these brands become more popular, personalities become more popular, does it change the way that content's created? Like, can we still live in a world where we have unbiased news or content, given that the rewards in digital are more around personalities, more around opinions, kind of salacious hot takes, etc.?
It's a good question. I don't know, but what I do know is I think this is actually going to help the New York Times of the world.
Why?
Because you look at, people trust the New York Times. And so if the more and more people start to not trust other people, well, I'll take a step back. A certain subset of people trust the New York Times. And the people who trust the New York Times really trust the New York Times. I think 30% of the New York Times revenue is from cooking. Their cooking app?
Really?
Something like that, yeah. Or maybe cooking and crosswords.
Yeah.
Right? What does that have to do with news.
Political coverage.
It doesn't, but they have the distribution and you trust them. And so and again, they've probably built, I've never used the cooking app. They've probably built an incredible app. So I'm not taking anything away from them.
The app's so good, the food just appears. It's like magic.
That's $1 billion brand right there. But I think it's such a barbell, right?
Yeah.
It's all going to come to the top. The brands that people trust, the brands people resonate with are going to accrue more and more value. And then I do think there's an opportunity for the indie publisher, the Ben Thompson, the person who's doing a really good job to make a great living. I think that's an awesome opportunity. But I think a lot of people are going to get stuck in the middle of the barbell, which is no one really cares about what you're saying. You can't monetize that. Maybe you've raised too much capital to sell and you're stuck. And I think we're seeing that in consumer, with direct to consumer. We're seeing it in media. We'll continue to see it in media. I am really interested to see what the fallout is because there's been some media consolidation, and I'm not talking about like Disney and I'm talking more about some of the publishers. And so there's been some consolidation, but that feels like it's like a stepping stone to what's actually going to happen. And so what's going to happen with some of these other publishers, we'll see.
Here's a hot take for you. Ben Thompson's not an indie publisher. He's an influencer.
I would agree.
Right?
Yeah.
And if you think about this in the sense of that line is getting very, very blurred.
Yep.
Right? Because the quote unquote indie publisher of the past now looks more like an influencer, but they're still either monetizing or creating content like the indie publisher used to do. And so if you look at like a Kylie Jenner, she built a physical product, sold it through to an audience. Like, what's the difference between a Ben Thompson super high quality, analysis of some tech company or strategy versus Kylie Jenner posting a picture of her ass? Like, actually, not that much if both of them are trying to monetize.
No, it's the content that covers
Kylie Jenner ass in there because I wanted to see your reaction, and you chuckled. I'm
not going to comment on that, but
I'm getting the head shake from Paulina as well, so that means that was a great comment. Go ahead.
But no, it's the content of commerce thing, right? People are media companies, and Ben Thompson, I pay, I think it's $120 a year. If he built something of higher dollar amount, I would pay for that too.
Yep.
And these staggered media models, Webb Smith's another one, does a great job. It's staggering, right? And so
I got to get Webb in here, man.
You do.
He's legit.
Yeah, he's great. And so, but what he's done is, and he could speak to it much better than I can, is he's built a paid newsletter, which is, I think, $100, $200, whatever. And that has a pretty high top of funnel. And then he has some executive forum, which is, maybe 10x that, or maybe not exactly.
$1,000 a year.
Yeah. So $1,000.
$9.99.
Yeah. And so, for people's that willingness to pay, they join that. And then I'm sure he's doing other things for people's willingness to pay is 10,000 or 50. And maybe, I don't know, maybe that is consulting, so, and it's not just him, it's all these people. And so I think these models, if you are unbelievable, there are endless opportunities for you to monetize yourself, monetize your content, monetize your network. If you're not, I think things are going to be very, very challenging for the other 98% of people.
But this is true not only in the media world. This is also true, and I think kind of what you're getting at here is like this influencer world where, The Rock is probably the best example of this right now. He's the most recognized actor in the world. He still does the wrestling stuff. He now has a production company. He's produced things like some gladiator show or whatever he's got going on. He's got to do, 3 to 5 movies a year that are all pretty big productions. Then he's got his tequila company that he's launching. And you just go down the line, you're like, dude, this dude, what's the Jay-Z line? Like, I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman.
Exactly,
right?
Yeah.
Like, that's essentially what we're seeing. But again, if you compare Ben Thompson, Kylie Jenner, and The Rock, they all look very different, but the strategy is the exact same.
Yeah, and not potentially. The Rock has a higher, total addressable market, and he can launch more products. But I'm not sure if that's what it's about, right? To some extent, it's about living the life you want, about doing the work you want to do, and the tools are out there. I can strongly guess that this is exactly what Ben Thompson wants to do. I think a lot
he could have a way bigger business if he wanted to do other things, but he probably doesn't want to do other things.
Yeah, and that's so many people on Substack or with these communities. It's you have the flexibility and the freedom to do whatever you want. I mean, it's not a revolutionary concept, right? It goes back to even Tim Ferriss's 4-hour work week and all of that. But all these tools, Shopify, Substack, Stripe, they've all made it incredibly easy. Now, potentially too easy to become a billion-dollar brand like some of these direct-to-consumers, right? The push to direct-to-consumer, a lot of that was helped by, logistics and Shopify and Stripe and and Facebook ads and all of this, right? And so people thought, okay, that allows you to create these direct-to-consumer companies. Maybe not, right? Maybe these companies aren't meant to be billion-dollar brands because there's so much opportunity for it. Maybe it's gotten too democratized. Now everyone can do it, right? You can make your own candle company and start selling candles tomorrow, probably. You could. It's not that hard. And my big thesis around this is that it lends itself to niches. And so if you can find a deep niche like Ben has, like Webb has, like you have in crypto, you will succeed. And I think niches are way deeper than people think. And you can provide endless value to people and go up that staggering willingness to pay and launch the low AOV, the middle, the high, and really extract as much value as you want to from your niche. Now, certainly some niches are larger than others, but they are way, way deeper. And the internet and all these platforms are showing us just how deep these niches are and just how much people can monetize.
How do you think about physical products, right? We saw like publishers, like quote, and I'm putting that in air quotes, Kylie Jenner, Lip Kit, The Rock, the tequila, BuzzFeed had a whole labs thing, right? I think they sold candles or calendars.
Yeah, but Tasty.
All kinds of stuff, right? Yeah, all this stuff. How do you guys think about physical products? Is that something that you've looked at, would go into, or kind of how do you think about that?
Yeah, so our team's going to make fun of me because I've been talking about launching a sock brand for a while.
A sock brand?
Yeah, so not, we haven't actually thought about it. I'm just a big sock fan.
Let's think about it right now. All right. What kind of socks do you have on?
Bombas.
Bombas?
Yeah.
You're like a high-end sock guy. I'm a low-end sock guy. I always wear Nikes. Usually, you know why?
Why?
Somebody might want to get dunked on.
Oh my God.
All right. So what about the sock brand? Why socks?
High margin. I don't think anyone's built a brand in the business sock space that resonates with millennials.
Okay.
So you wear it to work. They are, while doesn't replenish in the same way that toothpaste or shaving cream does, you do want to refresh your socks.
Yeah, can't wear holes in your socks.
Yeah. Again, I think it's high margin. And
these are like dress socks or like everyday socks?
So both. I love. People are going to give me everyone at Morning Brew is going to give me so much shit for this.
I'm going to double down on this now. Wait, but so is the idea that you build a brand and everyone like kind of like so take Polo for example?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like Polo is, hey, we put our little horse guy on here, and now all of a sudden it's a Polo shirt. It's a shirt just like anything else, but when we put the brand that people want to buy because of the Polo shirt versus let's say a shirt that has like really cool designs on it. I buy it because of the design, not because of the brand. Which bucket do the socks go into? Is it more the brand or the actual design of the sock?
We'd have to test it, but we want to do fun socks, right? Okay. Morning Brew's fun, witty. I think we could do like a business casual sock, right?
Yeah. What goes on the sock?
What?
Give me one. I know you thought about this. Well, give me one idea.
I can't give away all my ideas.
Oh my God.
Someone's going to come in and take it.
What's the worst idea you had so no one will take it, but it'll give us an idea of the type of sock you're talking about?
I can't give away. I can't give it away.
My God. All right. When he launches $1 billion sock brand, I want credit for pushing him to do this.
But odds are the paid product we will launch will not be socks. Get that on the record. Make that clear. I've been overruled. That will be a side project at some point. A sock brand for myself because I do love socks.
If all of a sudden Morning Brew launches like pocket protectors or something stupid and not socks, I'm going to be so mad.
No. I think what we launch when we think about paid products, it has to further people's career. It has to, continue education, furthering their career. Something that is not news, something that is additive that you feel like after a year's worth of spending, whether it's $100 or $1,000, you feel as if you've extracted value and you have actionable takeaways. And so that's what we're working towards is what's something we can provide for people that they feel like after consuming the content, and obviously content's vague. So whatever that means, people feel like they've gained something out of it professionally, personally, whatever it may be. And actually, one of the general partners at Andreessen Horowitz wrote a great blog post titled 1,000 fans versus 100 fans. I don't know if you saw that.
I saw that,
yeah. And so when you look at a lot of media companies are out there thinking in the 1,000 fan vein, hey, and influencers as well. Hey, you like me a lot, and Twitch was built off this. I'm not a big esports person, but I believe anyway. Give me like $1, $2, not out of your own self-interest because you like me and support me and you want to see me succeed. That's an option. I really like the other one, which was the 100 True Fans model, which is we are going to give you true value that you are going to pay for out of self-interest because it is furthering you and bettering your career. Mm-hmm. And that is something that we believe we have the right to play, to be a part of and to make a play there. And so we'll see. We're not rushing it again. We have no timeline. We're not going to launch anything until we feel as if we're in the right, we have the ability and we have a great product. But that's definitely what we're thinking. If we were to launch something paid, how do we get people to pay for something out of their self-interest, not because they support Morning Brew?
Mm-hmm. Bitcoin. What are your thoughts?
I was hoping you wouldn't ask me about this.
Come on. How are you going to walk in here and I'm not going to ask?
I was actually, I play in a poker game with a bunch of the Bitcoin guys, the guys from the block.
Yeah.
And a few of these other, crypto, eToro, and a few of these other ones. And they're trying to push, I do own some Bitcoin.
Okay.
Because I want to have a good diversified portfolio.
Okay. That's a good answer.
I think it's interesting. I wish I invested 5 years ago.
Everyone does.
But I don't have a strong enough stance to take an opinion.
Okay. Would it be fair to say you said you're 25?
Yes.
That it is increasing in popularity among kind of your friend group, meaning more of like demographically, or it is decreasing, it's stagnant? Like, what do you see? I'm fascinated by the idea that there's lots of people talking about like 25 and under. I got a brother who's, I think John's like 23. And like, I read all this stuff and I go talk to him and like his opinion is literally the opposite of what the media is writing about. So I have a 25-year-old right here and he's going to tell us all the secrets.
So obviously there was that big boom when Bitcoin went to $20,000 a coin.
All your friends became degenerate gamblers.
Yeah, which is when I bought Bitcoin. So I'm now 50%. No, it wasn't that bad, but it's also not that good. I would say it's pretty stagnant now.
Okay.
I do.
That's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
It's better than 2017 when everyone was buying it at, 15,000, 20,000.
I would agree. I do think cash is going away. So let's make, I think.
Oh, interesting. So you're not necessarily like hardcore Bitcoin believer, but you're a believer in the legacy world will change.
Yes, absolutely.
It doesn't necessarily go away, but we go cashless.
Exactly. I think we're going to go cashless. Now, who owns that space? I have not done enough research. Whether is it, one of these fintech companies, a credit card company, which coin may it be? I don't know. Everyone was hot on Ethereum before, and I know that had different use cases. But I do think we're heading in that direction. I just don't have enough knowledge or spent the time to be confident that Bitcoin is the right coin.
That's fair.
I think we should start a Morning Brew coin. I
was just going to ask if you're ever going to start a crypto newsletter, but Morning Brew coin, you're like jumping to level 301 or 401.
I mean, so at the top of Morning Brew, we have a ticker, and we have gold. This is going to be really embarrassing. We have the Dow, we have the S&P, we have NASDAQ, we have gold. I think we have like the 10-year and maybe one other.
Okay.
I can't remember if it's 5 or 6, which I read it every day. I should know.
Yep.
And everyone's like, you got to add crypto. You got to add crypto. And so we'll see. But that'll be a big step if and when we add crypto to the top of Morning Brew. That's the first step. But we did think about all these ICO jokes when everyone was ICO, like when all the fraud was happening. But then all the fraud, shit hit the fan, and they're like, all right, this isn't fun anymore.
Well, it was funny when people were like, hey man, I know that guy. That guy literally put up a website and just raised $300 million. Or like, wait, somebody just gave him $50 million. What the hell are you guys investing in?
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh wait, that guy disappeared with the money. Never mind.
Yeah. So that wasn't very funny. We weren't going to make that joke. But yeah, I think the financial system's evolving. I don't know. I can't say I'm bullish on Bitcoin, but I own it. So I also can't say I'm bearish. I hope it goes to $1 million.
You're going to be the president of the United States for that politically correct answer. Aliens, believer or non-believer?
Oh, believer.
Why?
Fermi paradox. Have you read that? Yeah.
I've asked 200 plus people this. That's probably the most common answer.
Yeah.
And it's also probably the most rational.
It's math. It's just like probability is so high. It's also a very similar argument that we're in a simulation.
You think so?
Yeah. Elon Musk says we are, and I trust him. So
how do we break out?
That's a good. I don't have the answer to that one.
Okay, all right. You just mentioned Elon, so we're gonna go there. Are you like a Tesla fanboy?
Okay, so I would say
he's prepping. I can see. He's like, oh shit.
I gotta make sure I answer this one correctly. So high level, yes, I think Elon is a net positive for the world. He's great.
Agree.
Advent. What's his expression? Like basically create a better society through technology. And the what I think is most interesting about Elon Musk, people think he is this unbelievable engineer. No, it's the business models. The business models are fascinating. What he does is he says, hey, I want to create an electric car future. Everyone has electric cars. And so most people say, all right, well, let's start making electric cars. He realized you can't do that. So instead, let's go out there and let's make the super, what was the
original,
the Roadster.
Yeah.
And let's sell that and let's sell it to rich people. And that'll make it sexy and make it cool. And then we'll sell it, we'll do the Model S, which is more affordable, still not affordable, but $100,000. So more people can buy it. And then we'll innovate each time. We'll innovate our battery technology more and more. And then we'll have the Model 3 is what the one is now. And then we'll go even further down the line. We'll have affordable car. Same thing with SpaceX, right? We want to go to Mars, but you can't just raise money to go to Mars. No one's going to pay for that.
Well, he probably could raise money to go to Mars out of the gate, but he knew that would be a bad idea.
Yeah. So instead, satellites, and let's innovate on rocket ship technology every single time. And so
he's a very first principles thinker.
Yeah, very first principles. Yeah. And that's this is all, by the way, this is not original thinking. This is all the Tim Urban piece. He's incredible. I've probably read that 4-part series like 7 times, which is longer than the book. So
do you think Tim Urban's a real person?
So supposedly he is. Supposedly my co-founder sat next to him on an airplane. And I've emailed back and forth him once or twice. We're trying to get him to do something at Morning Brew.
I'm joking because I know he's a real person. I think Plin has talked with him, etc. But I just feel like a guy named Tim Urban is the exact person who ends up being like an urban legend. And it's just like a whole bunch of people who are writing articles.
No, I've seen him do a TED Talk, which is very funny and very good. But we got to get him on Business Casual. We got to get him, we got to do something with him in Morning Brew. Back to your question, Elon. So net positive. Some of the stuff he's done obviously shouldn't have done, but huge net positive.
If you
for
raise
society.
money, will you ever tweet out funding secured? I'm waiting. Nobody's done this yet. I'm waiting for a startup to announce their funding by tweeting out funding secured.
We don't plan on raising capital anytime soon. However, that's not a bad idea. We might go out and raise money just to do that.
Like, I just think about that's like a layup PR move for a startup, and I'm shocked that no one's thought of that one yet.
Yeah, I think people are staying away from that, but yeah, someone's got to embrace that. That's good. That's a good one.
There's enough psychos out there. Somebody will do it. All right, what's your favorite book? And then you can ask me a question. Then we're done.
Cool.
I'll let you out of the dungeon. That's what I'm gonna start calling this place. Look at this. This has got nothing like a prison cell.
I'll give you 2 because one I just read recently, and then I'll give you one that I read pretty frequently. I just read the Bob Iger book.
Oh, yeah.
Incredible.
Really?
I try my best to not read books written in the last 5-10 years. Just prefer books that have stood the test of time. And you're not reading it because they've had a great PR strategy. But I think Disney's fascinating. And I read the Iger book and it was incredible. So I would recommend reading that. And the other one's Deep Work, Cal Newport.
Wait, why do I know this?
It's a pretty famous book.
Yeah. What is this about?
It's about doing deep work. Basic idea is that in today's society.
Did you just dunk on me? All right, go ahead.
No, basic idea is that in today's society, the most valuable skill you can have is your ability to learn things quickly. Mm-hmm. The best way to learn things quickly is getting into deep work as fast as possible.
Oh, interesting.
And so it's how can you get into deep work? And it goes through some examples of if you're, it gives the most extreme example. Like if you're a researcher, you may disconnect completely from society for 6 months, or some people just like don't have social media at all. And then there's people like J.K. Rowling, who when she was writing Harry Potter, like tweeted like, I'm gone. I'm going to go write this book or these 7 books, however many there are. And so she, went ahead and did that. But then it goes.
Didn't she write them like really fast too?
I don't know, but I wouldn't
thought
be.
She did, yeah. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
But and then it goes all the way down. It's like, okay, you work in a normal 9 to 5. How can you find time within that 9 to 5 to carve out deep work? And I talk about at Morning Brew all the time. We spend so much time doing shallow work, doing low leverage tasks. because you're inundated with Slack or email, and that's all playing defense. And so you have to force yourself to play offense, to set a schedule, and it's all about going back. It's focus, right? Yeah. It's what are the most important things. If you don't set yourself up for success, however you want to do it, you're going to end up being beholden to everyone else besides yourself, doing everyone else's checklist, doing work for everyone else. You have to be very strict with your time. And I think that may at times come off as off-putting or unfriendly, but you just can't grab coffee with everyone. You can't.
Yeah, saying no is okay.
Yeah, you have to say no. It's a great thing. I need to be comfortable saying no. And so Deep Work's great. I've read it 2 or 3 times now, and I would recommend everyone to read it.
I've never asked somebody this question before. Now I'm interested because you just said all that. What is the way that you communicate internally and externally? Do you use email, text, Slack, Twitter DMs, Instagram DMs, paper airplanes, whatever else people are using today? Yeah,
so I've started to simplify a lot. So I download Instagram probably 1 day a week and just like check it and then delete it. Just so I'm really not on Instagram anymore. I deleted my Facebook.
Okay.
It's just too much, too many signals. I just don't need all that.
I expect that from a 25-year-old. The Facebook being good.
Twitter DMs.
Instagram, you re-download it every week.
It takes 30 seconds.
Yeah, but still.
I just don't want to open the app. I'm like, if I'm on the subway,
if it's not on your phone,
I just don't want to do it.
Okay.
So like on a Sunday night, I'll download it, check out some videos, and I'll be like, why do I even have this, and delete it again. Twitter DMs are a disaster. It's so hard, and that's why this took so long to book, because I take 5 days.
You're the only person that's worse than me. I'm really bad. I DM'd you, and then you like 2 days later, like, hey, and I was like, man, yes, I found somebody worse than me.
I'm bad.
I just miss. If it goes down, I just never scroll back far enough to get it.
Yeah, well, there's no mark as unread. The discoverability is terrible.
Same with text, though.
Yeah, same with text. Same with Slack. I hate Slack. We use Slack at work.
I don't use Slack.
And I can't stand it. And the reason why I can't stand it is because, well, there's a few reasons. First, when people write an email, you take time, you write the email, you proofread it, and it takes time. Therefore, most people can, if that email would have been a Slack, they would just send it. But a lot of times in writing your email, you realize, oh, I actually know the answer to this, or it takes time and there's a little bit of friction there. And that friction makes you consider other alternatives, such as Googling it or figuring it out yourself. Also in Slack, people talk stream of conscious. So they might say, hey, Austin, next, enter. I have a question, enter. Instead of just asking what they want or telling you what they want. And then going back to discoverability, someone sends me a Slack, let's say something important, but I don't have time to deal with it. What do? Do I mark as unread? There's no prioritization at all. There's no way to just like put it in like a folder, which an email I have. I love email.
I can't wait for Slack to listen to this and then say, no, they're not advertising on the podcast.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
I'm joking.
Big Stuart Butterfield fan, but I can't get behind. I don't know.
But for all those reasons are actually very true. And it's very kind of Bezos-esque in terms of like, he says, look, we start out every meeting. You have to write, I think it's like 3 or 6 page thing, the person leading the meeting. And everyone there starts the meeting by literally reading what this person wrote. And so like, hey, somebody that you're about to meet with took the time to write this, like you should probably take it pretty seriously. And I bet if they know that everyone at the meeting is going to read it, they're going to take the time to write it really well.
Yeah, 100%. You have to add friction to communication. I think the thought for a while was, as little friction as possible, Slack and all these chatting apps. And for what it's worth, it's also our fault for not building a good set of rules or infrastructure around Slack. But it's just so easy to just like having that Instagram app on my phone is so easy just to click on it. Having Slack, it's just so easy to default to. I don't want to go through that friction of opening an email, a subject line. I so much rather just open this thing up and type away. Mm-hmm. And I will go back and open up my phone and I will have 50 Slack messages, and how many will actually be important? And the problem is the answer will be more than 0. So I need to siphon through those, find the important ones, figure out how do I store that information. Not a Slack person. So I try to do everything through email. And it's funny how when you force people to send you emails, how many fewer emails you get than Slacks. And potentially some of those problems aren't being solved. I would guess 99% of those, they're being solved. The person just actually solving it themselves versus putting the work on other people.
Somebody needs to create a autoresponder for Twitter DMs that says, hey, can you please email me?
Yeah.
I bet 50% of the DMs I get that I respond to, that's my response. I don't even acknowledge what they said. I just say, hey, can you email me? Here's my email, because I'm actually interested in what they're saying. But this whole thing of like, oh, if I start talking to you, then I go do something else. Like, it's just send it all to one place.
If anyone is still listening to this, please build that or send us a link or something. Yeah.
Somebody will.
I would love that. I would love, see, I don't want to shut off Twitter DMs because I love Twitter. I committed to, building a following on Twitter beginning of 2019. And it's talk about high leverage activities. Nothing is higher leverage than Twitter. You get to interact with the smartest people on the planet.
People not on Twitter don't understand that.
They don't
People
get it.
that are on Twitter are like, duh. Like, why are you telling me what I already know?
Yeah.
Right.
It's just the leverage you can create. And I've met some of the most incredible people, friends, coworkers, just like really, really smart people. We recruit using Twitter. For me, it's brand marketing.
What do you guys do? You just slide in someone's DMs and you're like, want a job?
No, we just post, hey, job descriptions, and people just retweet. Or there are people who I'll see and I'm like, oh, that person's interesting. DM them, or maybe they won't want to work at Morning Brew, but they'll know someone. So I mean, friends, coworkers, you name it. Side business partners, everything is all been done through Twitter. So I love Twitter, but DMs, it's terrible.
Yeah, they're gonna improve it. I got faith.
Yeah.
All right, we really sidetracked there. What one question you have for me to finish this up?
Pitch me on Bitcoin.
Oh man,
not a question, but in a minute 30 or less.
I might do it in 3 sentences.
Perfect.
Probably 95+% of your wealth is denominated in a single currency. If that currency fails, you're screwed. And any other fiat currency that you store your wealth in is being debased away every single year. But I know about one that's not.
Okay.
That's really it, right? It's very simple, but to your point, I think a lot of people make it much more complex than it really is, right? Because it's almost like once you know the pitch of Bitcoin, you're like, oh, that's it.
But why Bitcoin? Why not Pomp coin?
Because if the US dollar failed, you would never trust the US government with any other currency. And we see this in countries all the time, right? So like, for example, Venezuelan Bolivar gets hyperinflated away. I don't care what currency they come out with next, no one's trusting it, right? Same thing here is when Bitcoin was the first to be created, currency is the one thing where first mover advantage, or one of the things where first mover advantage really, really matters, especially once you get the network effect going. And so if Bitcoin fails, my prediction is that no other digital currency that is separated from a sovereign nation will work. So it's basically, we have Bitcoin as the one chance at separation of state and money. If it doesn't work, I don't care who launches what after that, the human species will not trust a software-led non-sovereign currency. So it's kind of this like weird first mover advantage, network effect, brand awareness thing that like, here we go. Now, there's all these other things like stable coins and all this other stuff. I look at those as like, really what they are is they're taking digital currencies and they're kind of like, it's an evolution of the fiat currency, because ultimately this isn't about technology, it's about the monetary policy. So that's like the big misconceptions. Everyone's really worried about, what technology am I going to use? Well, eventually every currency is going to be digital. Instead, what you have to do is you have to make a decision on the monetary policy. So U.S. monetary policy is obviously one thing, China, Russia, India, all around the world, but they all have a very similar framework, which is they use inflation and interest rate cuts in order to drive economic activity. Well, that's great for the top 50% or less. It's really bad for the bottom 50% or less of a population. You can do that for a really long time, like literally decades and decades and decades, but eventually that game ends. I don't know if that's like next year or 200 years from now. But literally every global reserve currency in the world has failed other than the US dollar so far because they debased away the currency. Like, what is inflation? Like, we're doing the same thing. And so they're like, there's this weird, and I still look at it as an experiment, right? Like, there's this deflationary thing that has a disinflationary monetary schedule that like is a digital currency. It's actually got like pretty big adoption. If you think about 11 years in, more than 1% of the world's population has it, access to it or exposure. It's got a shot, right? I don't know what the probability of success is, but like it's above zero. Yeah.
So it feels like you're less bullish on Bitcoin than you are bearish on every other currency. And therefore, if you're bearish on every other currency and every other cryptocurrency not named Bitcoin, then the default is just, it may not be Bitcoin, but if it's not Bitcoin, it's nothing. Is that what it is?
Yeah. So basically, like, well, it's two things. So definitely bearish on fiat currencies in general. Now, that's not like I have some original thought, like you said, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, just look at history, right? Like debasing a currency ends up leading to the demise of the currency. So like that's, I mean, literally 5,000+ years of watching that happen. And like, if we think that we're smarter than history, like we're the idiots in the room. So I think that generally falls in that bucket. But then when you look at like, what is the solution? I do think that this idea of two things. So one, separation of state and money, and two, triple entry accounting, like applying those two things together in the unique way that Bitcoin's done it. It's like, it has a legitimate shot to scale, right? Because I think what would be scary is like, oh, we all know about something, but it's not actually built to scale. And this is where you get the like MySpaces of the world, et cetera, right? And that's why a Facebook can come along, or all, you know, whatever, 22, 23 search engines before Google, et cetera. Those are tech problems. This isn't a tech problem. This is a monetary policy problem. And so when you see it that way, I think all of a sudden, no, you're fine. The woman who cleans the place just came in. That means that we're working hard. We should get paid overtime today. No, but I think that the monetary policy part is lost on a lot of people. And it's like a weird subject. Like, how many people actually understand U.S. monetary policy or like fiat currency monetary policy?
Not many.
Yeah, like
no way.
Literally, actually, scary thought. Like the central bankers might not even understand it. Right? I'll leave everyone with one stat. I need to look up how many times, but I think that the Federal Reserve has tried to predict GDP growth on in the quarter to come. So like the next quarter over 200 times. Like it's like 250 times or something. They have gone zero for 250 times, right? They've never gotten it right. Now we're talking about, they may say 1.8% and ends up being 1.7 or something like that, right? So they can be close, but they've never nailed it. And so it just goes back to show like humans are pretty stupid, right? In terms of some of this stuff. And so they're trying to make predictions about things in the future that just aren't predictable. So we'll see what happens.
Cool.
All right. Are you a believer? I failed.
I will buy a bit more Bitcoin.
Oh, okay. That's fine. Just do $10 so you don't get mad if you lose it all. All right, man. Listen, where can people get in touch with you, and then where can they sign up for the newsletters?
Yeah, so I just said I'm not on Instagram anymore. So I actually do have an Instagram, but Twitter. So Austin_Rief, RIEF. So that's me. And then you can go to morningbrew.com, sign up for Morning Brew, and you can just Google retail brew, emerging tech brew, business casual. Obviously, business casual is everywhere. You can download a podcast, Spotify, Apple, wherever else you want to listen to your podcast.
Killed it.
Cool.
All right, man. Thanks so much.
Sweet.